Hey friends, welcome to a new video here on the LNM channel. Today we're going to be looking at something I've been wanting to share for a while and kind of set up or started a video for it and then never actually got to it. Basically, we're going to be talking about binder rings or ring systems. A lot of people just refer to them as their filofax system. I wanted to just start off the video with a little kind of journal with me session that showed how I set up for the week and in the different binder systems that I'm currently using. And then I also wanted to talk about, how I got started with binders, the story for that, and what I currently have in my system in terms of covers, how I use those journals, and how I kind of have recently been using them, particularly in a way that feels really exciting. I have talked a lot about this already in my weekly updates on Patreon, but I wanted to just make a standalone video that could be kind of like easily referenceable. And I also wanted to talk about it because I'm going to be receiving an item soon that's going to have its own dedicated video with an unboxing and a review. And before that happened, it is going to be a rings binder. Before that happened, I just wanted to give some additional context about me and rings and all that stuff so that it didn't feel like it's just me, selling something or just randomly doing an unboxing, because I think for me, process is really important, and the container in which that thing is also important. Don't get me wrong, but I don't want you to feel that you can't do what you're being inspired to do by seeing my pages in your own systems, if that makes sense. But I did just want to make a video kind of talking about how rings really have invaded my system this year and how that has been the case. I want to talk about just the covers that I have right off the bat so you guys know kind of like the sizes and what brands I'm working with and which I've really enjoyed, which ones I haven't enjoyed very much in terms of the covers themselves, and kind of like the origin story of where this happened. But I'm also going to take a sip of my coffee. I'm drinking some black coffee. So let me do that and let me know what you're drinking if you have a drink of choice. I feel like it's not as pretty for me to show you a cup of black coffee, but alas, it is what it is. So the first rings cover that entered my kind of like system was this portabello filofax. And right now I'm basically just using it as a storage because I'm not using it at the moment. This one I got off of Mercari. And let me see if I can just move some of these things out so it's a little easier. So first binder I ever got was this portabello filofax, and I got it off of Mercari. All of my covers, I believe, yep, all of my covers are ones that I purchased used. I have not purchased any brand new covers, except for the one that will be arriving in the mail at some point in the next couple of days. But this is a personal rings, and I got this cover, I want to say late 2024, and I got it because at that point both Megan Rhiannon, Lindsay Scribbles, and a couple of other people were delving into rings again. And that was really inspiring to me. And I was like, okay, I need to do something like that. And like a lot of people, I just went out and got a ring system. And I tried setting it up at that point and it was wholly unsuccessful. And I kind of just let it go. I did end up purchasing a lot of like Franklin Covey sized, so like personal wide size stuff. And that wasn't like having the mixture of wide and personal wide in these was uncomfortable for me, so I ended up scrapping the personal wide, and I cut down. These are from, I want to say, Peanuts Planner Co. And I did purchase them Franklin Covey compact or personal wide, and I did cut them down. So um this was not very successful, and I kind of gave up on rings for a little bit after that. But I think like maybe March, April, May, around there. Actually, let me check because it was around the time that this A5 rings cover. I got this. So when this happened, that's when rings started really making a comeback for me. So let me look at when I posted that video. Okay, so it was in March. I posted that video on March 31st, which was my functional system wasn't working, so I'm trying something new. And that was in the A5 rings. And this was largely inspired by watching some videos by Erin where she set up an A5 rings for like planning. And then she had a personal rings for her North Star, kind of like goal setting place. So I was really inspired by that. And again, my functional system wasn't working. If you know, I posted recently a video where I changed that functional system over to index cards, and that's been working really, really well. But as you can see, there's a through line, just as a side note, of my functional system being a little bit more precarious and difficult to manage than my journaling systems, which makes total sense to me. But essentially, when I started getting into that, that's when rings really started to merge itself into my life, because at that point I started watching Japanese content creators. And that was largely due to inspiration from Mina over at Mina Pomelo. And she was talking about Japanese creators, and I had just started watching them, especially after kind of like getting my own A5. And right now I'm using this also as a sort of just storage. I'm not using this actively, but I got the A5. I got some plotter inserts also inspired by Aaron Ware, and I realized these plotter inserts don't really work too well for me. Um, I might give them a try again. Like, if you know anything about me and my systems, you know that I am someone who experiments quite often. And so if something doesn't work one time, I will probably go back to it at another point and try something else with it. So there's never really any like wasted things. I don't get too pressed about purchasing things that I don't end up using in the way that I thought, because I will usually be able to use it in a different way later on, or repurpose it or recycle the images, or the paper rather. So I'm not too pressed about that. But yeah, the A5 system for planning didn't work too well. And it just, one of the approaches that I took to basically ring systems was that I wasn't going to do what I tried to do at the beginning of the year with the portabello, right? I wasn't going to try, I tried like printing out a bunch of inserts and like trying to set up a perfect system and get everything set up from the get-go. That doesn't work for me. I'm not someone who can just like do that. And I tried doing that at some point again here with the A5. I really need to do things as a in a process, right? So I need to get started in a system because, and I don't know if this is the same for everybody. I do think this is a universal truth. You don't know what you need until you need it, right? You don't know what you don't know until you know that you don't know it. And so the way that you approach certain aspects of journaling, certain aspects of planning is different. And this is a brand new system. Loose leaf is a different way of doing things, even if it might not seem that way. There are things that you can do with loose leaf ring systems that you can't do with bound books in the same way, and vice versa, right? Like there's pros and cons to both. And when it comes to ring systems, one of the major pros that a lot of people have is that you can print your own inserts. And that's something that I'm really, really keen on. However, I do get very easily overwhelmed with printing my own inserts and um kind of like making it super customizable. So that's something that I knew I didn't want to do this time around because it overwhelmed me when I tried going into personal rings. So right off the bat, I knew that I wanted to get inserts from other people, at least to start off with, to see what worked and what didn't work. And I've kind of been going off of that. But since I really liked the ring system in this occasion, even if it wasn't 100% working for me, that kind of got me into this whole thing. I started watching um, Japanese content creators, also inspired. I mentioned Mina earlier, but also inspired by Nikki Kaigi. So Nikki Kaigi is who introduced me, along with some other Japanese creators, into the M5. And so introduces itself the M5 into the system. So let's talk about the M5s before I go into the next personal that I got. So the M5 is a micro 5, and for those of you who are just used to kind of like American, like usually you don't really see the M5. At least in the spaces that I was looking at, you didn't see the M5. The only other M5 user that I've seen on kind of like my side of the niche is Planner Coven, which, oh my goodness, Planner Coven's M5s are like so amazing. So amazing. But other than that, Nikki Kaigi. So Nikki Kaigi at one point showed off this double rings system. And when I tell you, I have never been starstruck by a system than when I saw that double rings. Something about the double rings was just so appealing to me. And so started my kind of like search for a double rings system. And so this is an Ashford cover that I'm now using as my wallet. At one point, I had wanted to use my, um, I got a passport traveler's notebook earlier in the year. And actually, this is how it should look. So let me just show you what that originally looked like, because this is the original insert for this. So my beautiful little the passport as my comfort carry. I did switch over the passport into here and it's doubling as a wallet. So I had these two inserts which were basically meant to be, this is like a reference area for me to have like different swatches and different things that I can reference if I go out. And I have a little gloomy card over here. And then this is just a general, it was meant to be just a general inbox where I can write things down. I don't often use these sections, but I just like having them. They feel very comfortable to me. And I did get this cover from Mercari Japan. They really only had this color, and I thought I wasn't gonna like it. I was like, well, you know what? I wanted a black one, but it's fine. But it since has become one of my favorite things. I love the color. And then what ended up happening is that because this is primarily in my wallet, and I wanted to have an M5 insert with me, and I grew emotionally attached to this Luffy image, I took it out, and I have this living on my desk. And I just got a new insert because you can buy random inserts on Ashford, which is a Japanese brand, and I put that in here. So I have 3 M5 inserts, and this is basically my wallet, and I love it very much. There's just something so fun about the double rings. I don't know, some people might consider it gimmicky, but I really, really like it, and I'm still in the process of trying to figure out how best to utilize these in here, but I am not rushing, right? Like, this is part of the hobby. I don't need to have answers right away. As of right now, this is just really comfortable for me to have in my system, and so that's what I do. That's why I have it. In terms of the one that lives on my desk, this has multiple uses. Sometimes it's just here to be on my desk because I love Luffy and this wabi sabi charm really means a lot to me. But I have been using it lately, like you would have seen at the beginning, as a sort of tracker system, and I will show you where these are living in a bit. I also have this kind of, I have them here on the side because I moved them out of here. Let me get it. So I have these Crefective paper daily plan inserts that I printed out. So you can see, right, like how I started off saying, hey, I don't want to print out any of my inserts. I just kind of want to use things that are pre-printed. And because I gave myself that kind of like rule, and I have been experimenting with that, and I'll show that to you when I get into the other personal planners. I've now made it to a point where I can kind of understand what it is that I need, and I'm willing to start printing my own inserts. So again, just take things step by step. Realize that you don't need to have all the answers right away if that's something that's stressing you out. So I have these little timelines because I realized for myself with like, again, we're talking about functional systems, that I don't need it every day, but there are some points where I do need to kind of try and time block a little bit. So I found that when I was time blocking in an A5 cousin, the spacing for the time blocking is about the size of an M5 paper. So let me kind of show you that. Where do I have? Oh, that's so difficult to access. Hold on. So if we look here at a cousin, right? It's basically the size of an M5. Actually, the M5 is bigger, right? And so this little section was one that I used to kind of set up my time blocking. And so I realized, hey, I can use an M5 for that. So I printed a couple of these out. The problem is that I didn't realize that I got so excited about printing my own insert that I didn't realize that the timeline was off for what I would need it. So the timeline on this Crefective insert goes from 8 a.m. to 10, and I wake up at 5. So unfortunately, there's that. Technically, my work day, my actual like work day for other people that doesn't involve my own stuff starts at 8, so it's not a big deal, but I will be changing that when I reprint these. So I have these available to me whenever I need them, and I will show you again where those live, where they have been living lately. But that's basically what I use the M5 for. It's also just scrap paper. I also tend to put my little cheat sheet for my currently inks in here, and then I stick that in as well into my systems. And I've been using it this month as a place for me to put my stats as well, to kind of have that really easy access. So it tends to be kind of like what a post-it system would be. I'm trying to determine whether through this one or another size, what will work, if I can kind of make it work for tasks. We'll see. That's one of the things that I've been struggling with in terms of functional system, is a place for me to have notes and tasks. And I keep debating on whether I enjoy smaller or bigger sizes for that. So there's that. But yeah, I really love the M5. I feel like it's such a cute design, and you would think Me being someone who really enjoys bigger sizes, that I wouldn't like a size as small as an M5, but to me, it's just the cutest thing ever, and it really is such an emotional, like, carry for me. Um, okay, delving back into the personal size, the next things that I got were these 2, ring binders. So again, I started kind of like delving into the rings thing. I got the M5. I'm seeing a lot of people use personal in the Japanese space. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe I should try personal again. Maybe I should realize what it is that I don't like about this, because there's something here with this particular cover that's created a barrier of entry. One of the things was, as you can see, I'd removed the little clasp. I really disliked the clasp on this one for some reason. Another thing is I'm not very fond of the side pockets. I much prefer them to be vertical. And then something that you wouldn't think of, the rings on this are so hard to open and close that it just becomes a nuisance for me. So here's a somewhat of thing to consider. I always talk about how it doesn't really matter what you're in, just like create, right? But I also want to recognize that the tools that you use can inspire or do the opposite, right? And so just recognize that there may be moments where you should or you can switch things up if that's within your means, something that you want to do. If you're feeling like a particular tool of yours is not inspiring you. So I didn't feel very inspired to use this for, daily logging or other tasks, functional tasks or stuff like that. And I spent a good amount of time trying to make this work, and it was just not working for the reasons that I just told you. So I decided, okay, I'm going to try and see if I can find another cover. And of course, as a lot of us are in the community, I really wanted the Ranger. I really love how the vertical pockets. I love the mesh, and just a lot about it. I just think it's such a really nice cover, but a lot of the time the Ranger was just too inaccessible. Whenever someone posts a Ranger to sell, it's just crazy numbers. So I couldn't find one right off the bat. I decided, because I realized I didn't like um the clasp, that I would try looking for a personal rings that didn't have one. And I was with the cover with the pockets. I was like, "You know what? I don't necessarily need pockets." I was really interested in kind of like the plotters, but the plotters are a little bit out of my at the time, because I was still experimenting, they were a little bit out of my price range, and also I was afraid of the small rings. So I ended up finding two things. One is this Ashford insert that you could just buy by itself. It's an insert, you can place it inside of things. I originally bought this to try and see if it would fit inside of my Tragan Weeks cover. And what's funny is that I think Nikki over at Nikki Kaigi also tried doing that at some point, and it doesn't fit. Sadly, it's a little bit too wide. So like this little insert is a little bit too wide, so that didn't work. But I really love the look of these inserts quite a lot. So I got that. And then I also found on eBay this Heritage filofax, which doesn't have any clasps or anything like that, no pockets. So I tried doing that. This came with the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 um dividers, which funnily enough, little story on the dividers. I looked high and low. I would keep looking for these dividers everywhere and couldn't find them, only to realize later that they come like natively in a filofax when you buy them. So that was a little fun thing. But I got this one, and this became my functional system. As you can see here, I put in a bunch of notes pages. I bought the filofax monthly, which right off the bat, I the filofax monthly I tried using, and first of all, I think they're too small, or I don't know if it's that they're too small or if it's that I just don't like the color. Um, I really am, unfortunately for the white paper girlies, the white paper people, I am a cream paper lover. And I think that this might just be a little too stark. Something that I've had an issue with too, and I don't know if it's just a me thing, but some Filofax papers are not fountain pen friendly, and it pisses me off. Like I got a bunch of the color Filofax whatchamacallit, papers, and some of them are not fountain pen friendly, and that is just so infuriating. So I tried using this for, I think I was trying to use it for kind of like just a general calendar, and then that wasn't working. And yeah, I just something about this feels off, which again, maybe that's something that would piss you off if you're like, "Well, if it feels wrong, why did you get it?" "Well, I wouldn't know that it felt wrong. I thought I was gonna like it. Sorry, guys." Like, I don't know. That's just the name of the game sometimes. Then the other thing I got was Ashford weeklies. So I really like the weekly style in this, and I was trying to use it for again. This is meant to be my functional system, and it kind of worked, but not too much. What I ended up doing too was just adding a random blank paper in between the weeks where I could put my tasks, and then I just notched it so I could move it fairly easily across sections. But yeah, that wasn't super successful either. I don't know, something about the form. Maybe I should give it a try again, but I was having issues at the time where I tried it. It wasn't working 100%. I was kind of getting lost in the notes pages as well. Like I didn't know where I was. I would just write in random places and then I would have to find those things. Something that I'm considering is I saw again Nikki Kaigi, so many mentions, but she's amazing. You guys should definitely check her out if you haven't yet. She recently posted a video where she talked about how she set up, let me look for it. She set up um a plotter notebook over here in the front with like a little tab situation, and she would just write inside of it here and then later sort it. I think that is brilliant, first of all. And I know she didn't come up with it herself. She watched it from this Japanese creator um whose name I'm blanking on, but is also really, really good. And I think that that could solve my issue with notes, because everything is at the front, and then I could just transfer it over into a different place once I'm done with it for reference if needed. So I really like that, and I think I'm gonna try it out. Um, but yeah, this was what I was using for functional, and it wasn't 100% working. So I think that another thing that I don't really care about with this particular planner is that, and this isn't true of a few filofaxes, is that it's a little bit stiff and it doesn't lay flat. That kind of pisses me off a little bit. So that is something that I've realized as well. I do think I'm gonna sell this heritage. If any of you are interested in it, let me know. But it is practically new. It is in really good condition, but yeah, I'm just not using it very often. I'm not being called to it, so I think I am gonna try and sell it. Yeah, I don't try to sell the portabello because it's all cut up. But this one is in really good condition, so I'm probably gonna try selling this one, and seeing about that. So those are the next two acquisitions, in terms of ring systems. But I really wanted to try Passport, and so I got a Passport Metropol, and this one unfortunately is not doing too good. It's very crackly. As soon as I got it, the pen loop cracked. This is a faux leather, so that makes sense. And so for those of you who don't know, the M5, the M5 and the Passport or Pocket are both considered mini planners, but the M5 is considered the mini 5 because it has 5 rings, and the Pocket or the Pocket has 6, so it's considered the mini 6. So if you guys are seeing that somewhere and you're not sure what that means, that's the difference basically. You can kind of see the size difference here. But I was very keen on trying this out because at one point I was having issues with my Hobonichi Weeks media journal and because of the side. So something that I consistently have issues with my media journal is this page here. So I was considering maybe, hey, maybe if I can do a media journal where I don't have this page and it's just kind of like both weeks on a side, maybe that could work. So I tried that out with a pocket. I found this one again. It came with the little tabs, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I tried that out for a while in one of the Filofax cream monthlies. So, and that worked really, really well. I liked it quite a lot. At some point, I went back into the Hobonichi weeks, but I do quite enjoy seeing this, and I probably will add it back up again. In fact, I really want to see how I can make a pocket. Um, Work as a media journal companion. So that's something that I am trialing. But unfortunately, this pocket rings is kind of falling apart and cracking and all over the places. So I'm looking for an alternative, which, spoiler alert, that's what's coming in the mail. Um, but yeah, I used this as a impromptu media journal, and the idea was to have the media journal on one section and then have reactions in another, lists in another section, and so on and so forth. And that's still something that I want to consider as well. So that's in the works. I'm really excited to kind of trial that. The reason why I really liked the metropol and why I got it is because first of all, you can't find Rangers for Pocket anywhere, and I'm sure that once they show up, they are ridiculously priced. But the metropole had kind of like these vertical rings, not rings, pockets, and it had this mesh in the back. Also, this particular one came with a map, which I don't know what, something about the map just calls to me. I love it. And it came with this little cover as well, which I have a gloomy card in. And yeah, I really like the mesh pockets. I don't know what it is about the mesh pockets that just call to me. So this was not wholly successful, but I do want to continue experimenting with and just changing it up. And I think that part of why it wasn't successful has to do with, first of all, some of these pages are not fountain pen friendly. The cover is not the best. Um, Even though I do like it, I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, we're still trialing it. But that's the other thing that came into my system. Now we get to the creme de la creme, which is me deconstructing the hobonichi cousin. Oh, actually, even before I get into that, I didn't talk about what I'm housing in here. Basically, what I'm housing in here is my ink catalog by color. So I do use a Hobonichi Weeks just to catalog whenever an ink comes into my system. And that is different from this, where it's cataloging where every color has its own little leaf and every pen has its own little leaf where I can kind of keep the log for it. So that's what I'm doing inside of this personal rings insert. Okay, so let's get into the Hobonichi cousin of it all. So I was using at the beginning of the year a Hobonichi cousin for as a media journal companion, and I was using a take a note as a daily log. I originally started the take a note as a planning system, but it didn't work, and so I changed it into a media journal companion, and that didn't work 100% either, and I ended up moving that into the Hobonichi cousin and using the tan as a daily log. Um, at some point, again, I was like, you know what? You know, I really want to. I've been enjoying rings. I think I want to deconstruct it. And so I did. I got this. This is a Franklin Covey day planner, I want to say. I think that's what they're called. I got it off eBay as well, used. And originally these binders are 7 rings. So they're not 6 rings. Please keep that in mind. But I did kind of break it apart, and which by the way, I have to kind of like tighten this up again. I did break it apart and put in the 3 rings. And these are really big. I think they're 30. If these are 30, then the others can be 30, right? I don't know. Anyways, I'm not, please don't, I'm not the end all be all of ring sizes, ring diameters. But essentially, I deconstructed the Hobonichi cousin, which I had as an Avec, and I put it in rings. And I loved it. I've not looked back. And so right now, the way that I have the system set up, originally I had set it up so that like part of the year was in another binder and part of the year was in the other, but I really missed having the daily pages all together. So I realized, okay, how do I want to use this moving forward? And what I ended up doing was I put all of the daily pages in here because it can kind of hold them for the most part. It's really full, but it can hold them. So all of the daily pages are in here. I then, because it was going so well, did holes in my take a note. So I have a binder with all the take a note pages. And then right now, I have a binder, which is the one you would have seen earlier in the earlier clips, where I have all of the vertical weeklies and, spoiler alert there, all of the vertical weeklies and the monthlies for the cousin in here. So basically, these 2 binders make up my Hobonichi cousin. And the vertical, or I'm sorry, the daily pages really serve as a kind of like media journal, not a media, yes, a media journal, but basically it's a place for me to capture the things that I am paying attention to in recent days, which I'll talk, actually, you know what? I'm not going to talk about that. I'll talk about that in what I did in my journals in August video or in September video. But essentially, yeah, this houses my um daily pages in the Hobonichi cousin, which are things that capture my attention, things that digital ephemera that I collect, like fan art and songs for songs, list of songs, reviews of media that I've consumed, notes for courses, fan art collections, essentially all of the things, all of the little different things about the media that I'm consuming. And the weekly pages, let me move this to the side. The weekly pages are basically not an offload. What is the word I'm looking for? The weekly pages are basically an offset of that. The monthly pages have gone through a couple of different iterations, as well, basically all experiments, but it's all at the end of the day kind of like a companion to the media log that I have in the weeks. Ma'am, please, thank you. And you can see here a passport insert, which kind of brings me, no, not yet, let me get this is what happens when you don't have a script. You kind of go all over the place, but essentially all of the monthlies live in here and all of the vertical weeklies live in here as well. And yeah, so that's been really fun. And the vertical weeklies is something that I have switched up time and time again, like most things. And they have different purposes and I've done different things with them and all that jazz. So something that I started doing when I did, like I mentioned with the M5, is I would kind of like stick this in. Through watching a lot of Japanese creators, I found that they have really interesting ways of keeping journals. Essentially, they stick in a lot of things. So they have a bunch of journals and then they stick in the different aspects of their journals into them, either through glue, like I've been doing here with the M5, or just tipping them in. And most recently, I watched Noom over at New Moon Space do something that totally blew my head open, and I have been doing as well, and I'll show you that in a second. But at some point, I was using, like I mentioned earlier, the tan to take a note as a daily log, and that was working well, but I kind of wanted to switch it up. Some of the earlier daily log pages, and you can kind of see here with the M5. Let me go back. With the M5, where are you? I was tipping the M5 in different spaces. So that's one way that I was implementing or introducing the M5 into my other pages. This is another style that I was doing, and I do have flip throughs. If you're new here, I do have flip throughs of my pages. Here's me sticking in something else, as you can see. So I'm experimenting with different sizes and finding ways to implement those things into the actual main A5 pages, very reminiscent of Japanese creators. Here's one week I used a hobonichi weeks and I just stuck it into the pages. So I was using this as my daily log, but at one point I found on eBay the Ranger, and it was at a price that I was willing to pay, and it was in good condition, and I got it. And I've been using this instead as my daily log these days. And what's really interesting about using this as my daily log, and you would have seen at the beginning of the video, is that I'm housing these inside of the A5. So let me show you that. That is what I watched at in New Moon's Space's video. Essentially, they have an A5 because they have multiple sizes as well, but they have an A5 where they stick in all of their inserts from the different pages. So here you can see a little tip pin as well that I glued in, but here's that M5 daily plan that I've just stuck into here. And I went in and I added all of my take a note pages as well that I had been using for daily notes, for daily logging at some point. And this was also something else actually that I should share because it's another aspect of my system that I've been using lately and I really wanted to share with you. I got a perforation tool, and essentially you can get any page that you want and just perforate it and then rip it out. So like, let's pretend this was housed in you perforate it, you cut it, and then you can put it in. And so instead of breaking apart an insert, which is what I do quite often, I do break things apart, you can just use a perforation tool to take out the pages that you want to take out, and then there's that. And so that's what I did with this, and I put that in here. I also transferred in some of the older ones from previously in the year and added them into this page as well. One of the reasons I was trialing that out is because next year I don't think I'm going to have an hour studio journal. Which is my joy journal right now. I think that I'm going to make the vertical weeklies a space where I do my joy journaling, kind of like picture heavy, and then I can have my daily log pages embedded in between, kind of like what you see. here. So here I have my little M5 thing that I just pasted in, and then I have my personal rings pages embedded in between them. And I've been doing that for the past couple of weeks. I just put this here temporarily. I will be sticking this in, but I have just been, daily logging in my rings and then just sticking in the pages in here. This is a journaling session that I did on a typewriter. I just put that in here. And what's really cool is that you can either notch the bottom or notch the top, and then they'll fit inside of the A5 just fine, as you can kind of see here. I really love this spread. And so the idea is that the spreads behind it will have its own kind of like conversation. And then inside you have, so if I'm using it as a joy journal, for example, that captures my, high level wins for the week. And then I have my daily logging, which is very stream of consciousness in the middle. But the fact is that I can have one of the things that I struggle with every single year is the beginning of the year. I want all of my things to be in one journal, and then I realized that the ways that I journal makes it so that that is really difficult. And so this way I can have multiple types of journals, different sizes. I can play in different sizes, play in different like systems, and then put them all together at the end of the year and have them live in one space. So here you can see I have these little M5. This is just, I was feeling overwhelmed this day and I just needed to write something. So I just did that here. The daily plan. And then again, I'm just housing this temporarily. That will be in here. I'll stick that in. And then just my daily pages, my daily logging pages. I can daily log as much or as little as I want, but the daily log pages will live inside of their respective week. And that has been so much fun. I've been enjoying it quite a lot. And I'm excited to kind of see how it continues to evolve in the upcoming weeks and months that I use them. And yeah, so basically that's how I'm using my rings right now. I'm using one A5 rings to kind of house my vertical weekly pages and my monthly pages for the Hobonichi cousin. And then in between those pages, I am housing kind of like any other pages that I use in different journals. And this makes it really cool too, right? Because let's say I want to experiment one week like I did here in a tan because I missed the format. I can just go in there and then use a perforation tool to cut the pages out and put them into my rings. If I wanted to use another bound journal, for example, right now I'm taking notes in here for a course that I'm taking. Once I'm done, I'll just perforate the pages, rip them out, put them in here. And so I get to use different pages, different books, different formats, and then just stick them into this one place that houses everything. And that to me is really, really exciting. The one thing I will say that has me a little bit worried about that is that the original idea was that at the end of the year, I would rebind the Hobonichi cousin into one book. I'm thinking that probably is not something that I'm going to be able to do given all of the different sizes of the pages. I think that they'll probably just end up sticking up if I try doing that. So I'll probably end up having my ring system just I'll probably end up archiving them as a ring system. But yeah, that's that. That's basically the evolution of my rings usage. And what I'm thinking I'm gonna do is if I can figure it out, I will have the daily pages kind of like for the daily logging that I have here in one section. And oh, here's another example of me perforating. So I perforated the vertical weeklies for the TN and cut them down and put them into here. And I've been using that for something as well, kind of like a more poetic version of my weekly. um I will say though, this I'm sad because this ring is kind of like open a little bit. I wonder if there's anything I can do to kind of close it up a bit. But I'm trying to see if I can have this be, you can see I moved in the vertical weeklies from the horizontal weeklies from the Ashford. Kind of like have my daily logging in the front and then maybe some notes in the back. We'll see. That's something that I'm experimenting with. But yeah, that is my evolution with the ring system, and I've been enjoying it quite a lot lately and having a lot of fun. I hope that that was informational, if not inspiring, if not entertaining. If you have any questions about any of the systems, let me know, and I will answer to the best of my ability. I've been having a lot of fun in my journals and playing with paper and experimenting with sizing, and it's been a lot of fun. And so my call to action is for you to also have fun in your systems and experiment in whatever way feels right for you. even if that's not rings, right? Like rings are not for everyone. I 100% recognize that. And I've definitely had my ups and downs with them. And there are moments where I feel the need to be in a bound book. And now I get the best of both worlds because I can be in a bound book. I can then perforate the pages and rip them out and put them in my ring system. It's so much fun. I love this thing. But anyways, thank you so much for watching. I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye.